the US men's national team are going to begin their journey to win the Copa America by first playing Bolivia tomorrow night at the AT&T Stadium in Texas. If we look at the US last 5 games, they lost to Slovenia 1-0, they won against Jamaica 3-1, won against Mexico 2-0 in the Nations League, and then went on to lose against Colombia 5-1, which was embarrassing, probably one of the worst defeats the US have suffered, and in their most previous match, they have tied against Brazil 1-1. Now, if we really do look at their record, they have only won twice in the past 5 games, against Jamaica and against Mexico. The US failed to win outside of that, and mainly because these teams like Colombia and Brazil especially are a level above, and the US failed yet again by trying to win convincingly. We have always wanted to be in a position where the US can defeat teams like Colombia, Brazil, Uruguay, Peru, Argentina, etc., but the US as of now does not seem like they are in that position. But fortunately for the US, the Copa America that is coming up in 24 hours, the US are going to be in the exact position where they want to be, and that is by trying to win the Copa America and to prove that they can compete against the top national teams in the world. This is also what Christian Pulisic had to say about the US current situation, and it says here, and I quote, "Now it's time to prove ourselves at the Copa America. I think we have learned a lot. We have put some good performances in the World Cup. We have shown people that, okay, this team can play, and now it's about just putting in those performances, but finding a way to get results in the biggest matches. That is the next step for us." And so it is going to be difficult. We're going to be facing also Panama and Uruguay later throughout this tournament. If the US want to have any chance of going into the next round, they have to, at the very least, beat Bolivia, which is the minimum requirement, because teams like Panama and Uruguay are also going to be extremely difficult. We have just seen Uruguay hammer Mexico 4-0. Panama is also a team that always likes to compete, and the US have to be very careful. The last time the US were in a very competitive group stage was back in the World Cup in 2022. They had Wales, England, and Iran, and fortunately for us, we got into the next round, but yet again, just like what we talked about in the past 5 games that the US have played, the US tied against Wales 1-1, tied against England 0-0, and only barely beat Iran 1-0. Then they went on to the next round and lost against the Netherlands 3-1. And so that run that the US had in the World Cup is very similar to what we saw in the past previous 5 games. You can beat teams like Iran, maybe also Jamaica and Mexico, who are all in the same level, but the US are not in the level where they can defeat teams like England and the Netherlands. That is why they failed to get a win in those 2 matches, very similar to how they failed to get a win against Colombia and Brazil. So the US seems like they have stalled in the past 2 years in terms of growth and progression. But going back to what I said, the best place to grow and to progress your game is in this Copa America here. Really prove to the fans that you guys are upgrading. We have the correct players. There's so much talent in this squad. Greg Berhalter has to do his very best job to make sure all players get maximized. We have players like Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams. What more do you want? Weston McKennie also spoke about the Copa America, and this is what he stated, and I quote, "Athletes don't play competitions to go in there and say we want to get 2nd place or 3rd. We want to try and win the whole thing. We know it's a challenge. We know it's hard. We have defending World Cup champions Argentina in the tournament, but at the same time, we know our quality. We know our ability. We always say we may not be the most talented group, but the one thing that we can be is the type of team that plays for everyone. It's like a big family." And so hopefully that is what we do see. We want the US to be performing as a collective, to be one unit. We cannot be disorganized. We cannot play individual. This team is a team, right? Every player from the attack to the defense have to be very well connected. Now, since we are going to be facing Bolivia, I expect nothing less but a win. It has to be a win. If you look at Bolivia's track record, since back to October 17th, 2023, they have only gotten 2 wins, but they have lost their previous 3 matches. They have also lost another 2 matches, 3-0 against Uruguay, 3-2 against Algeria, another loss against Paraguay, 1-0. Bolivia is not that good of a team. So I think that in this debut match, the US have to go with all cylinders firing. Very similar to how the US approached Brazil in the first 20 minutes. The US were taking so many shots, generating so many opportunities, trying to take shots from outside the box, and that is what we're going to need against Bolivia, because Bolivia, believe me, they will make mistakes. They will give us chances, and we have to capitalize off of that. There is no reason for us to try and overcomplicate things by trying to outpass the opponent. Let's just take shots from outside the box, because I think that with Yunus Musa, Gio Reyna, Christian Pulisic, Timothy Weah, they're starting to show that they are very good at long shots, and we saw that against Brazil, and we have to repeat the exact same thing. Let's be aware of what our strengths are, because I strongly believe that long shots, it's where it's at. So now I do want to move on towards the next section and talk about who starts in this game. What is going to be our starting 11? Now, many have been having questions about Tyler Adams, because many have said Tyler Adams should start in the midfield. Others have been saying Tyler Adams should not be starting and just come in later into the game. Many have claimed that they wanted to see Johnny Cardoso start with Gio Reyna and Weston Weston McKennie in the midfield, but I don't necessarily believe that Johnny should be a starter. He had a very slow start against Brazil and also against Colombia. He did not have his best game. Was he awful? No, he wasn't. But a player that was much more effective in the pivot position was Yunus Musa, which is the player that I believe should be starting with Weston McKennie and Gio Reyna. Tyler Adams, based off what we have heard, Greg Berhalter did say right before the match between the US and Brazil, Tyler Adams can only play up to 30 minutes. Berhalter does see Adams as not fully fit to play a full 90 minutes. And that is the main reason why I believe that Yunus Musa will be starting in the pivot position, exactly what we saw against Brazil. Do I think that Tyler Adams has the ability to come in later in the game? Of course he can. I think that Yunus Musa will be starting with Adams coming in around the 60th minute to the 65th minute. I do think that as we go further and further into this tournament, Tyler Adams is slowly going to be integrated into the starting 11. Maybe in the first 2 games, he comes in on the 60th minute. On the 3rd to 4th game, assuming that the US progress, maybe we can have Tyler Adams come in even earlier. And then once we do get into the quarterfinals or semifinals, hopefully, right, I'm assuming, we can have Tyler Adams officially start. Tyler Adams also said a couple of days ago that when he is healthy and plays consistently, he is one of the best midfielders at what he does in the world. And I don't really know about that, but I do like the confidence that Tyler Adams is bringing right now. I have full support for the player. I do think that Tyler Adams is going to amaze us in the Copa America, but it is going to be a slow start for him in terms of minutes. So this is going to be my starting 11. Matt Turner in goal, Anthony Robinson on the left back position, Tim Ream and Chris Richards as our center backs, with Joel Scully on the right back position. Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie and Gio Reyna will be in the midfield, so it would be Weston McKennie forming a double pivot with Yunus Musa and Gio Reyna as the 10. Christian Pulisic, Florian Balogun and Timothy Weah will be our front 3. Yunus Musa for me has impressed me a lot. I think that in the first 10 to 15 minutes against Brazil, he did look a little shaky. He was making some mistakes, but then later in the game, he grew, and he grew a lot by making great decisions, making those runs into the middle of the pitch. He almost scored a screamer, by the way, against Brazil. And so at 21 years old, the fact that this player has been thrown into so many different positions, he never gives excuses. He does always like to step up, and so I think that he deserves to have this spot in the debut match. As for Scully, I'm happy to say that Scully has been a great replacement for Serginho Dest. I do miss Dest in a way because of his final third efficiency, but Scully has been so tremendous defensively. We have faced Colombia and Brazil, 2 teams where one contains Luis Diaz and one contains Vinicius Jr. Scully has done amazing against Luis Diaz and especially against Vinicius. A few days ago, Scully also had an interview and he spoke to a journalist, and he was claiming that he does have a group chat that does contain Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent and Brendan Aronson. And in that group chat, all of his friends do send Scully videos of Vinicius and how he does play. And so Scully was saying like he saw so many clips on how Vinicius likes to play against defenders, and he was studying his dribbling. And so I get it, right? It was jokes, but you know, this is actually true, right? Like to see like little clips of a certain player, this is something that clubs and national teams actually do to assess their opponent. They give these players many different 5 to 10 second clips to understand how these players like to move, what they usually do, what's their favorite foot, and these players are required to study the players and then tell the coach, hey, this is what I learned, this is what I think I should do, etc. And I do think that Scully will do the exact same thing once he does face teams like Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay eventually. So in the end, this is going to be my scoreline prediction. I do think that the US will win 4-0 against Bolivia. It's going to be an easy game if the US come in with high intensity, high aggression, and hunger to score goals. Let's start off on a good note. Let's make a statement to all Copa America opponents that the US is here to fight and to really win this trophy. Let's win 4-0. Let's win 5-0. If we can make it 6-0, let's do it. There's no reason for us to show some respect to the opponent. No, we need to trash the opponent whenever possible. We have a very tough group, and I feel like if we're not careful, it might come down to the goal difference. And so we're going to have to score as many goals as possible against Bolivia, and we're going to be there fully to support our team. So that is it. That is going to be wrapping up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.